All right. So
Hey, Mandy.
this is the last interview that we are doing for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And I'm super, oh, you know what? I'm trying to figure out why I can't hear anything.
You are too much, woman.
Why does it sound so bad? Um,
it's, it's okay. I was trying to talk to the girls in there, and I was muted.
for you.
Oh, you're so bad, Mindy. You're as
Oh
ditzy
my
as I am.
God.
I know.
Hello. So
Hello,
this
beautiful.
is the last interview that we are doing for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And I I don't know. I had the idea that I wanted to do this for a couple of different reasons. One is because so many people always ask, why do people feel the need to share their stories? This is something that people shouldn't talk about, or they should be over it already, or why do they get together in a group and talk about this stuff? It must be so
Right.
depressing. Or how does it even work? What happens when they get together, and what do these people look like, and what do y'all talk about? There's so many questions. People ask me so many questions. And so April
Right.
is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and I thought, okay, two things. One, we're all already isolating because of COVID-19, so
Right.
many of us are talking via internet anyways. So this is a great opportunity for us to do discussion online and show our faces. But
Right.
also, this is the month. April's the month. People
Right.
who are willing to share their story for the first time. Let's do it. Let's just
Right.
put it out there. And I'm always of the belief that if someone's willing to show their face, that's how we let people know that the things that happen to us are sometimes pretty horrific,
Yeah.
but it's not our shame to carry. And by showing our face, we're saying we are not embarrassed. We're
Right.
not the ones that have the shame uh, to hide. And that's
Right.
not that sometimes we don't still feel that way. And it's not saying
Uh-huh.
that not everybody can do that. There are a lot of us that are still really struggling with that, and that's totally fine. Everybody's in a different place, but um, I've been really, really amazed at how sometimes people first say, I'll never be able to talk about this, or I'll never be able to be in front of another person and take that mask off. And then, all of a sudden someone like you says, I'll do it.
I do
And so
it.
here we are. Here we
Then I'm
are.
like, what did I do? What am I doing?
Well, yeah,
No, no,
it's
I mean that's what
it almost feels like I tricked you, but I know I didn't.
no, you didn't trick me.
So that's kind of why I started with the big breath and kind of rolled my eyes like, I can't even believe that we're doing this,
I
because
know, right?
I feel like, I have a very unique opportunity to see every single person that walks through the door the
Yeah,
very first time, or interact with them the very first phone call or the very first email. And that's really special for me,
right,
because I see a whole different thing that nobody else sees,
right,
which is really the unfolding of the layers
yeah,
from the very initial contact. And
right,
so a lot of people in our circle have a relationship with you that they've built based on the amazing person that they see today. But I remember the very first phone call, and the phone call after, and the phone call after. And so you're just a miracle to me. So welcome, Deb.
Hey, Mindy.
um, is that the
It's
name we're
okay
going to
that
use today?
we can use Deb, or I'm really kind of owning that Daisy, the
Okay.
nickname you gave me,
So
and
that's what I wanted to ask you first, is how we should introduce you today.
however you want to. I go by many names, so I honestly, with you guys, I think you're whatever. What are you used to calling me, Deb? Yeah.
Well, I gotta be honest, you've completely fucked up my filing system. There's a couple of you. Yeah.
Oh, because I updated my name.
Well, you haven't updated it. You've just changed it several times, and you're not the only. No, no, you have different first names. You have different last names, and there are. I get different emails, and then on social media it's different, and then on the paperwork it's different, and sometimes I'm like, I don't even know if this is the same person. I have to go back and check. So keep me on my toes. So today you're Deb slash
Deb, that's good.
Daisy.
Yes.
Daisy Deb. Daisy
Daisy
Deb.
Deb.
So how have you been? How have you been with staying at home? Are you doing the whole quarantine thing?
Yeah. So I spent most of last month really struggling with some physical problems, just when the things really got heated with the coronavirus, and actually went in the hospital twice last month. So it's been
Wow.
crazy, and it was a little traumatic actually, but I survived it and I didn't get anything. And yeah, we're just kind of just doing grocery shopping and our yard, and we're getting to know our neighbors and our neighborhood, which is freaking, I'm like, oh my God, we have people that live on the street that look fun. And
It
so,
always takes a crisis to meet your
yes,
neighbors. You know, it's like when the
yes.
hurricanes come. That's all of a sudden you meet somebody that's been on your street for 15 years that you didn't know.
Well, we knew kind of our immediate neighbors, because we're patio people. I don't know. But just seeing way more, it just has been beautiful to see people out walking, taking, going for walks with their kids and their pets, and you're getting to meet. I mean, 6 feet that's a good personal space for me, actually.
Yeah, yeah, it works for you.
Yeah, it does a little bit. There is some parts where I'm struggling with really wanting some my girl hugs and my friend hugs. And I did get to see Becca uh, at Lawnwood. She came to visit me, and I've been making her some food and just trying to help her out because she's a healthcare worker. And it's just actually fostering deeper connections, because I feel like I've been ahead of the curve for so long, and I'm like, yeah, come on, disaster. I mean, I don't want anyone to be sick or anything, but I am seeing so much of the
What
silver
do you
lining.
mean? What do you mean that you're ahead of the curve?
Well, because I knew society needed this for probably since we really went wireless and smartphones, and people were no longer making eye contact, or you were feeling low even when I was feeling lonely, even when people were around. And I knew as a society, the more we removed ourselves from real human connection, we were going to be a society of very lonely, unhappy people. And, one of the questions you had asked, or you had put down was, uh, oh crap, what was it? Oh, about like how you feel about sharing in group and stuff. And I've been doing this since, God, like I never carried I carried the shame, but I've always talked about um being violated, as a child. And so I was that identified patient, and I was the squeaky wheel, and I was the one that said, no, no, that woman's crazy, or that, speaking up. And so I've kind of gotten used to speaking and not feeling heard. And that's the beauty of support groups, is you feel heard. That connection is incredible. I enjoy the online stuff, but boy, there's nothing that beats in person.
So having everybody slow down and really having to kind of take stock of their relationships and having to really kind of prioritize what's important for them is something that has resonated with you, because that's what you mean by you're
Yeah.
ahead of the curve, because
Yeah.
you really have always been one to do that,
Yeah.
have those
Yeah.
close relationships and those connections. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know that about you. How old are you?
Yeah. I am 57 years old.
You're 57, and
Yeah.
you had your sexual abuse as a child, right?
I've had my sexual abuse up until February. There was something that happened, but you were talking about the majority of my
Well, it
abuse. What?
started early in your life.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I was about 18 months old. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a whole lifetime of
Yes.
physical trauma.
Trauma, of physical, emotional. Just yeah, yeah. In fact, last night when I was kind of preparing for this, I realized I didn't real. It's like this slowing down is really helps you kind of get in charge of your stuff, a little bit, or try to. And I realized last night I was really triggered because I don't like video. It triggers me. It pictures and photography and talking about sex or even sex abuse. And so I was like, oh, that's where that came from. Oh, okay. So, and I could address it. And even though I'm nervous, I realized as long as I don't look at my own self, I'm good. So yeah. But I'm sorry, I interrupted you. You were going to ask me something. You were asking about how early the
No,
trauma was growing.
I'm just giving you
Oh,
the death stare because you apologized.
I did, didn't I?
You
I
did.
and I told me and my daughter recognized that I apparently passed that down to her. So
All the apologizing.
I'm supposed to change that and say, I'm sorry you have to experience this or something. I can't remember what we're going to say. But it's all about that mindfulness I love that you make me mindful of that because whatever I said I was sorry for, I'm not sorry for it. I'm just like an
Listen,
automatic.
I wanted
Automatic.
you to have this time to say whatever you needed to say, so you can interrupt away. But I I asked, I brought up the fact that you have had really this over 50 years, or 57, almost
Yeah,
55.
55.
Yeah, 55 years of all of this trauma. And you have now this really long period of forced isolation, and then going into the hospital again. That can be very triggering and anxiety inducing. So all of these things that have been happening of late, and yet you've been in a place where you have all of these new tools and these new
Right,
relationships that have allowed you to process in a new way, that you are experiencing the neighborhood, enjoying sitting on the back porch, reaching out to your new friends. And so how does that feel different when you look back at maybe where you were 5 years ago, if you had a physical ailment and ended up in the hospital, or if something like COVID had happened back then and
right.
you had a forced isolation and all this panic about, oh my gosh, what's going to happen, what's going to happen, what's going to happen? Because I constantly am explaining to people that there's somebody that has normal stuff in their life, and then there's somebody who's experienced sexual abuse and rape, especially
Right.
from an early age like you. And then you put on something like COVID, a natural
Right.
disaster, and someone like us, our tendency is to just skyrocket with anxiety and
Mhm.
fall back into old behaviors, where somebody like this, they it may wax and wane, but for us, we're
Right.
just off the chart. And
Right.
so I don't know if you're able to step outside of yourself right now and recognize that you've been pretty even,
Yeah.
which is really, that's why I say you're like a miracle right now.
Well, I have been having, some bi-weekly meltdowns, but
That's
I think
okay.
I think that's all good. I'm okay with it. I'm like, it's what needed to happen. I don't know how much of it was accurate, but it was accurate for that moment I was in. And I'm trying to stop spending so much time trying to validate that I'm like yesterday I was just having like this incredible meltdown, and I had gone outside at sunset and the birds were coming. We've got cardinals, bright red and blue, and they were just all, and then I just started crying. And I was like, why are you? And so I was asking myself all these questions. Like I had to have a reason to cry, or I had to explain in my own brain. And this whole, it's like, it's really been giving me a lot of opportunities to practice that mindfulness, you know.
But see, but that's the difference. That's what I'm saying. 5 years
uh,
ago,
5 years
if you had
ago.
been in that same situation and had the meltdown,
Mhm.
that meltdown could have really thrown you over the edge.
Right.
And, you know, we're human, and we're
Yeah.
always going to have the meltdown. We're always going to have the bad day. We're always going to have maybe a week. But there's a
Right.
difference between when we fall and we stay there, or we fall and maybe it's a day, maybe it's a week, but then we get our asses back up. And so
Right.
that's really the difference, because nobody is exempt from the falling,
Right. No,
you
no,
know
no.
but it's the falling and getting back up, and the falling and getting back up. Or are you just going to
Right.
stay down there and
Right.
allow the world to just keep dumping shit on top of you? And
Right.
I just, I know, and there may be some people that know you that know this, but when you first came to the Inner Truth Project, you hadn't been out of the house for how long?
2 years.
2 years.
About 2 years. Yeah. Yeah. Total isolation. Yeah, absolutely.
No COVID.
No COVID.
Just
Nope.
not leaving the house.
Well, I had a major medical crisis. I had a blood clot and an aneurysm, and it took me down. And this was when Ebola was happening, and I had just come back from from South Africa. And so all of a sudden, I'm having all these symptoms, and I went to the ER, and within 2 hours, I was having major, like, life-threatening surgery for the next 5 days. I spent 45 days in the hospital, and then another 5 years just recently that I'm able to kind of start managing my physical symptoms. So I had to literally, your brain is just your mind is a amazing thing, and that it could put all of my issues kind of, because my physical health was the one that needed to be addressed at the time, and so when I finally got my butt to group after 2 years of kind of being isolated, um, I hadn't really had much experience being out, and also figure out how to share just everything that had happened to me, and also, because I felt like I hadn't done something right, because I had to put all of my emotional issues on hold. Um, and then when I had to start dealing with my emotional issues, I'm like, God, I thought I dealt with this before. And oh my God. And so I kind of felt a little bit like I was coming into inner truth with my tail between my legs, a little bit. But my first meeting, I just sobbed again. Like last night, I couldn't tell you why. It was but I can see now it was the connection. I was terrified of going. I hate talking in public or on videos. I really don't enjoy it that much, but I had to talk myself into going, you know, and one of the questions you'd asked me was what kind of made me start finally going. After 2 years of just like every Thursday, you know, just kicking myself, oh, you should go, you should, you know, 2 years of that. And I finally, I, I have this aspect of myself where I really don't like failing to fear. Working out of a fear place is not a place I'm comfortable with.
Right.
So I felt, if I'm gonna just be, I felt like a pussy. So I felt like I was like, I wanted to kick my own ass. I'm like, oh my God, you know what to do. Why aren't you doing it? You know? So I did a little beating of myself up, and but yeah, that's something that motivates me a lot. Is like I don't want to look like a wuss in front of myself. And Christy, I know you know what I'm talking about, and Steph, and all you guys, I'm sure.
Well, I do remember, I remember you and I had several conversations, because you said, I'm going to show up tonight, and then you wouldn't show up, and then I would call you, and you're like,
Right.
and I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure there were several conversations we had where you were like, well, what time is it again? Or I think I lost the address,
Yeah.
and I was like, she might be on drugs. I can't figure out what's going on with her. And then you showed up, and I think you were one of the ones. We have a lot of people that do this, but you were sitting in the parking lot for a while. And then that night that you actually came in, I remember you sobbed.
Sobbed, yeah.
You just cried and cried and cried. And you told me on the phone, you go, I don't have to talk to anybody, do I? And I said, no. And then that night you did not stop talking.
I didn't.
No, after you were crying, you talked and talked and talked and talked. And I was like, yeah, all the people that say they're never going to talk, they always do.
Oh, goodness.
And so do you remember why you felt like you wanted to come back?
Yeah, because I wasn't done. I wasn't done with growing, and I think I've realized I'll never be done with self-growth. And I think um, uh, a support group is always a good place to go if you need support. But this specifically, you know, sexual abuse is such a um, tender topic, even in our sacred room there at ITP. And um, you know, you have to be gentle, you have to listen, you have to try to, you know, and that's a process I feel like is a lifelong process. So you know, this though isn't a tune-up. This is like a major engine overhaul, because like I said, I had no choice but to kind of stop my emotional process that happened in the end of 2014, and it's taken me this long to get, you know, I wasn't even feeling quite up to par when I started, but I knew I needed to start because I knew I was at a place where I needed some connection. I needed some help with the things that were going on in my head. And I remember I think I had asked you in one of our conversations about DID, because that was, you know, I figured if you couldn't handle it as the group's facilitator and creator and all that, then I would know by talking to you. And it was like, oh, just another, not in a bad way, but just, oh yeah, you know, we got, you know, several people that struggle with those issues too, and come meet some people. And that's always been my biggest fear as someone that dissociates and loses time and says, really? I talked to you about that? Oh, okay, yeah, sure. I remember that, you know. And I have to still work on that. And I think that a lot of time too, that's why I say I'm sorry so often. It's so ingrained, because how do you explain that to someone that doesn't have any experience? So go in some place where even one person can relate to, you know, being DID you know, or having drug addiction issues, or, you know, there were so many things. And first time I went to group, I'm like meeting all these people, and they're all dealing with the same thing. So it just made me cry because I was like, why did I take so long? I'm also an empath, so I have a hard time sometimes controlling how much energy I take in, how much energy I put out, doing that balancing. And boy, that night I just remember I felt like a sponge, like just, uh, you know, in a
It
good,
is really, really hard.
yeah,
I mean, because I feel that way too. I'm very much an empath, and when I leave at night, I am toast. I'm
yeah,
toast. I'm
I
done
bet.
because I just take in everything. And you know, there's a lot of people that also aren't saying anything, but
Mm,
I can feel it, I can see it, I can sense it. And
yeah,
you know, everybody's got their stuff, you know, and it's
right.
just, but every single person has a right to be there.
Hmm.
And just because it's emotional and just because it's hard doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it, and doesn't
Right.
mean that it's not going to be a celebration at some point.
Hmm.
And um, that something beautiful isn't happening. Just because it's hard, it doesn't
Right.
mean that it's not beautiful, you know.
Right.
And you know, say one of the things I wanted to just say too with the sorry about the DID is, when we say we're sorry, it's, you know, you don't remember the things that you do when you lose time,
Right.
and that's because it's a it's a mechanism of your trauma of disassociating.
Yeah. Yeah.
So saying you're sorry is almost like you're apologizing for protecting yourself.
Right.
So, you know, you still don't have to apologize because you don't remember. You're not remembering because you left your body to protect yourself, you know.
Right. Exactly.
But
Exactly.
I've had so many people over the years say, I don't think that I'll be able to fit into the group, and you know, they don't want to come out and say why.
Hmm.
And I always have to sort of pry it out of them or make a joke, and I'm like, were you sexually abused by an alien? Were you in a cult? Do you have 16 personalities? You know, like I have to say, you know, all of that. I'm like, because if
Do
any
you
of,
abuse drugs?
right, if any of the above is true, you're not the only
Right.
one. It's okay. You
Right.
know? And actually, once I did make that joke about the being abused by aliens, and we went off on like this crazy tangent in group, and I was like, you know what? I really am not comfortable with this conversation. Because that I did make up, but
Right.
I didn't think we were all that weird until that one came up. And
Right.
so
No, we're that weird and more.
yeah, we are that weird and more.
Yes.
But you know,
Embrace the
you were
weirdness.
you were one of the first people to openly talk about having dissociative identity disorder, and it really, you know, there are actually about 5 or 6 women who are open in our organization, but you were really one of the very first, and you've been very comfortable about talking about it and explaining. And so, has that helped you um, in your healing process? Having a place where you can talk. I mean, have you been able to talk to other survivors there who
Yeah.
also have DID?
Yeah. And that I think sometimes extends past group, you know, and you know, there's a deeper sharing, you know, when you can uh, you know, make those connections and maybe have, you know, some out of group time, you know, whether it's
Right.
texting or on Messenger. I mean, I just know that there's certain people that I can, you know, just text or call up, and uh, I just love getting to know everyone there. And I think I've always, no, that's not true. I haven't always, it's been comfortable, but I've been aware of it for a while now, a long time, since I was in my this is around 30, so that's a good 27 years of
Yeah.
dealing with it. That was long before it was called DID even,
Was it
so
multiple personality disorder?
yeah, that's what it used to be called. And then it was dissociative identity disorder. And I had a lot of good early stuff with some specialized programs, inpatient, on a trauma unit. They had to kick me out because I set the place on fire and scared all the trauma survivors. But, I had a therapist and she didn't give up on me, thank God.
I'll never forget the night that you said that in group, and then you said that you
I was going to
chased
try to
somebody with
scare.
a gun, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, I wonder if anybody's gonna get up and walk out right now.
Oh my God.
Nobody said anything and nobody left. And I thought, okay, we got this. We love her unconditionally. She just showed us a new level of fucked upness, but it's all good. We love her. We love her.
It's the litmus test, don't you know?
It was the total litmus test. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What?
Oh,
Sorry, did you guys hear that?
I did.
Yeah, sorry. That's my phone.
It's okay. I got to start our response.
What what have you learned about yourself from being able to share these things and not get the judgment and have that feeling of unconditional love and be able to be brutally honest about yourself, or even have these periods, because you've had it while you've been a part of our group, where you've actually had some meltdowns and you've had to leave for a little while, and people kept harassing you with love and making sure you were okay, like nobody ever gave up on you.
Right.
And so what have you learned about yourself through all of this?
I have learned mostly that, like, I need to wear one of those signs around my neck that say I need help but have a hard time asking for it, because sometimes, a lot of times, all right, all the time, I had to test that there for a minute. All the time, it feels very difficult and I have to constantly reassure myself, like, it's okay to call and just need someone to talk to and say, you don't have to fix it. I just need someone to, and even allowing myself that much comfort is something recently learned, because I am a people pleaser, a caregiver, that's what was my career. And so and then you add everything, that happened to me. So learning to really let people in, and really seeing other people and trying to figure out that, hearing people and listening and understanding, like everyone's at a different part in their journey. That's what about not judging people. Not that I think I judge people that much, but it's, I think, the thing that I fear the most. So I think everyone else does. So they probably do. I don't know. But that's a big fear of mine. I really, I think it was Chrissy, is it Henderson or Chrissy, she's logged in here. Henderson. Yeah, anyway, she was like, I thought she was so brave. To be on in the online group, and she was just like, I just want to connect. You're so brave. And I'm like, we are all so flippin' brave, and I love hanging. I feel like y'all are my girl gang, I feel like I have a gang, my gang, my girls, my ladies.
I feel that way all the time. And I swear to gosh, gosh darn it. I swear to God, these people, like, I see them at their worst. And I hear every single one of these people like talks total smack about themselves. And then I'm like, but you all are so badass. Like,
right.
Total girl gang. Yeah,
Yes, absolutely.
total girl gang.
Absolutely. And so definitely learning that, still learning that, but definitely loving that. Maybe that's what's different is like I used to be like, oh, well, every relationship was something I had to manage and control and understand, and it sometimes was just most of the time just too much, you know. But I don't know if it's how much I've grown. I also realize like there's so much wisdom has nothing to do with age. Like some of the stuff that I've learned recently are from like teenagers, which I love, you know. I think I relate to like a lot of ages because I can probably be a lot of ages. I don't know. I started wandering here in my brain, sorry.
I think, it also, for me, I used to really enjoy being around a lot of intellectuals, and we used to have
Yeah.
some people in our group who were very insightful and would say some very, very smart things, and I used to think, huh, I never thought that way, or I never saw it that way.
Right.
And then I realized, what really speaks more to my heart is when people are just really authentic
Right.
and are
Exactly.
really open and emotionally raw. And that's what really moves me, because at the end of the day, I don't really remember like the smart shit.
I
I
know.
and I really don't have any more brain capacity for it. I
Right.
have too much crap to do on my desk
I
and all
know.
that. But when people show their heart, that's the stuff that stays with me, and that's what's really helped me at the group and at the Inner Truth Project, is meeting people
Right.
who have really been authentic. And for me, that was what really was different than being in one-on-one therapy,
Right.
or things that I've tried in my past. I felt like I was learning so much, that was stimulating, that I was learning in my brain,
Right. Yeah.
but I never really saw somebody else's heart.
Right.
But being in group, and sometimes people are always uncomfortable, and I say all the time, it's okay to have silence. And
Hmm.
people say, oh, if no one's talking, everyone wants to jump in and say something. And I always, say, it's better to have extended bullshit than extended silence instead of forced bullshit.
Right.
Because I'd rather just sit with people that are quiet and just see their heart and feel their energy, because
Hmm.
that trust and that warmth, that's where I feel like I grow,
Right.
instead of hearing people just say nonsense.
Right.
And I was in years and years and years of therapy, and I felt
Mhm.
like I just got nonsense.
Right.
So I don't know about you, but I mean, do you feel like having, I know you were in therapy forever, and
Thanks. Thanks, Mindy.
I I
I
can't
feel
I don't
so
know
young today.
any of us in the group that weren't.
True.
But
True.
I feel like that for me was the difference. I don't know if that's for you, but I just, sometimes it's just being around each other
Right.
and just not saying anything necessarily that's earth shattering, or like
Right.
the greatest like mind bomb, but it's just the heart of each other that
Yeah.
has done it for
Absolutely.
me. Do you feel that?
Yeah. I think a good combination. I think there was a decade or maybe two, I'm not sure, that I did. I was going to therapy 3 times a week for like 4 hours each time, and I was also going to a support group. But I had stopped going to the support group because I wasn't far enough along in my own healing. If the group does not have healthy boundaries, if people are not being honest about the boundaries in the group, like if someone feels intrusive in our group, like I know automatically, well, not automatically, it took me a little while to trust you, but that I could pick up the phone and say something and just say, I'm not even comfortable enough to talk to that person. Like, or was it just like I can bounce things off of you? Not that we haven't had, I have not had any kind of issues like that, but I had been in a group for a while that had, oh, it was not any growth that I may have gotten from the group. There were so many negatives to it, because boundaries are real help, needed. Because
Yeah.
I think I know for myself with what I've been through, I can, I have to be very careful and be aware of my boundaries. And for a long time, I wasn't. So, I was like, why do bad things keep happening to me? And it was like, yeah, had to figure that one out too. But that was one of the things I really, really loved and kept me coming back to ITP, was the fact that there were good, healthy boundaries in there, and uh, yeah, so that definitely helps things.
I love
But
it. I just love that place.
I do too. I do too. It's an amazing place, and but like I said, I did need that intensive one-on-one therapy. Um, I mean, I was with her for 14 years, and that was beautiful. I mean, I just can't even express what a beautiful relationship we had and have. Um, and I think everyone's different.
Yeah.
Some people need, and I know for that time in my life, I needed that.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm realizing that I keep thinking, I got to find a therapist. I don't. I really, because I feel like I've got so much more to give now. Like, even if it's just like my ears, and listening and
Well, I think everybody is, like you said, is different. And, I had a therapist that literally saved my life, and I really wouldn't even be here today if it wasn't for her. But on the other hand, I had some therapists that really set me back, that were very, very, I almost could use the word abusive. So
yeah,
I I think it's so important that people have therapy, individual therapy in their life. And you said it earlier about a tune-up. There's
right.
nothing wrong with having ongoing therapy if you are in a place where you're comfortable with saying, this is not the right therapist for me,
Oh yeah, yeah,
or I've done enough right now and I'm ready to stop. Because
right,
sometimes I think people get in a place where they don't know that they have a right to leave, or
right,
a right to actually interview that therapist, and
right.
they don't have to stay. And those of us who are in vulnerable situations get really trapped. And that happened to me so many times.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the perfect scenario is when you have a support group and a
Mm-hmm.
therapist that you can have
Bounce things
as you
back.
need it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I just, unfortunately, because of finances and, just having access to really good practitioners,
Right.
it makes it hard. But
Yeah.
if somebody were listening right now that, has never had any of this, never had a private therapist, never had support group, never really even shared that they were maybe molested by a family member, or abused by a neighbor, or raped, nothing. They never talked about it because they feel like it's just too horrific to talk about. It's too embarrassing. What would you tell them?
And they've heard about the group maybe and are considering coming, kind of
Well,
thing, or
maybe because they're watching this
as
right now.
right. I would
I
say,
hope. I
uh,
hope. I hope they're watching.
we hope. No, I mean, I think as someone that it took 2 years to get there, I certainly have experience with that feeling, and gosh, I wish I could go back and talk to my past self that was, just a couple years ago, and because I think the personally feel like the healing from trauma comes from connection, We're, and that's the very thing we're terrified of, because connection before in our lives was always hurtful and
Right.
painful and violating and shameful feeling, or, you know,
And trust
and
is so hard.
trust is when you've had that trust that's betrayed at such a foundation. I would say give yourself permission to feel that way. Tell yourself that's right, that you're having a normal reaction. That's not an abnormal reaction you're having. From
Yeah.
your, if that's your experience, my experience is be really careful outside of this immediate circle. You know, and you don't have to let your guard down even, you know. Um, and you can always leave anytime you want to. No one will make you stay. Someone might come after you and check on you, you know. No, someone will come out and check on you, but at the same time, you know, the main thing is to feel safe. And if you can do 5 minutes, or you can be an hour late and still sit there. How long did I show up an hour late for and say, oh, I thought the group was at 7:30 years. You
Listen,
can even come sit out in the parking lot
you were
for,
on time tonight, and you get a gold star for that.
yay!
Yes, yes. I am super impressed. Well, I am so honored that you did this tonight, and am very, very impressed. Not only that you were on time, but that you were willing to do it, and that you were so open and honest. And do you still feel nervous?
A little bit, but not
Yeah.
as much. I was having a very coronavirus fatigue day from
Yeah.
overthinking and being so triggered last night a little bit, and so that's a real thing, because I'm having it.
Hmm. Yeah. God,
But thank,
everybody is. I know.
and I literally thought about canceling all the way up until I connected to you. Oh hell! So
I was prepared for you to
yay!
do so. I had a backup. So we have a few.
Oh,
Yeah, girl, I know you. So we have a few minutes.
oh, you're
I'm
killing
going
me.
to see if anybody has any questions or comments.
Absolutely.
And I just want to thank you again. I adore you. And I'm gonna just ask